Hi, folks, it's Smudge here, and welcome to a brand new show called Coffee Beans and Music Scenes. And this is going to be a bi weekly show where we discuss music news, what's hot, what's not, sit back, chill out, have a nice cup of coffee, and just talk all things audio. So, just to quickly explain what the format's going to be, we've got a hopefully going to be a nice informative show for you. We're going to go through some news topics, and we've got 6 great news topics lined up for you today, and then we're going to go into a more spotlight topic. And this is going to be a nice chilled out format, relax, bit of banter, and hopefully a load of good fun. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Smudge, and I'm an audio engineer based in the UK. And I've got my good friend and buddy, Mr. Tony Ross, with us as well. How you doing, Tony?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's fine here, Smudge. Pleased to be on the show this morning.
Great stuff. And Tony is he's an amazing, not only amazing musician, he's a great producer, he's a great engineer. And Tony, just have a quick chat, introduce your band and the That's Formato Effects and some of the work you've been doing with them as well.
Yeah, sure. I've kind of got my feet wet into this world of video recording and audio recording through my band or our band, That's Formato Effect. We've got our own channel, and you've probably seen me on various videos and in various forums. Predominantly, I got into audio engineering because I wanted to do my own work, my own songs, basically. And I hooked up with 2 guys that I knew from way back 40 years ago, and we formed the band again. We recorded an album. So really my musical journey was actually through recording this album and perfecting my skills as a mix engineer. So that's what I've been doing. So I mixed and produced that particular album, and I'm working on other projects as well. So I've been doing that for about 3 or 4 or 5 years. Started out on Logic Pro X. I'm now using Studio One as my main DAW, and just love everything about audio engineering and music.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the stuff you guys doing with that Smart Effects is really, really good. And the thing for the viewers, I want to, with Progressive Sound Audio, so we are predominantly an engineering-based company, so audio engineering, but we've got so many different things that we can do, and Tony's working very closely with us, and it's great to have him on board to give us more insight into not only the engineering, but actually just the musicianship and looking at the production side of things as well. And this show is going to be not only just about, we're not very much aiming around tips and techniques. This is going to be what's new in the industry, what products are going to be out there, what are companies doing to really kind of give you guys as much information as possible. So we're really looking forward to it. So like I said, we're going to go through some news items. And the first news item up for me is this one is real hot off the press because it starts today. The SSL Native Bus Compressor 2. It goes on sale via Plugin Boutique from the 23rd of June to the 7th of July. And it's coming in at a massive 90% off. So it's literally from £29.99 or $29.99 or euros, depends where you are in the world. And it's exclusively via Plugin Boutique from the 23rd of June to the 7th of July. The compressor itself is based on the G series console. The actual bus compressor, it's been emulated so many times, and it's just a wonderful tool. Have you used the bus compressor, the SSL style bus compressor, Tony? Whether via waves and
basically, I've got 2 flavors. Sometimes I use the very good one actually that comes with the fat channel. That's part of the PreSonus Studio Professional 6. I'm not sure whether it's available on Artis or other platforms, Prime, I'm not 100% sure. I actually really like that, actually. It's a very good emulation. I switched between that and the IK Multimedia version. I don't know what it's called. I'm a little bit happier with the tonal quality that I get from the IK Multimedia, but you really can't hear the difference between the 2. But every mix that I've ever done has had some kind of bus compression, and to date, I've always gone for some style of SSL bus compression, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's a great one. This particular bus compressor too. Two of the features that weren't in the original hardware. They've introduced a sidechain high pass filter, which is great. So if you've got a load of obviously low end information in your music, then obviously you've got that. So you're not really starting to add way too much compression just with the low end information, but it's also got external sidechain features. So it's got all the usual bells and whistles that you would expect in this kind of SSL bus compressor, but it's an SSL native. This is direct through solid state logic rather than emulation. So I think it's really great. And the general retail price of this is something like 329 quid. So if you can get that for 30 quid effectively, I think it's a great buy. And what we'll do is I'm going to add some links in the description down below. There is an affiliate link that I will add, because I do have an affiliate link with Plugin Boutique, but it's not going to cost any more money for you. So if you're interested in the products and you do want to buy it, there'll be an affiliate link down below. But it's just a link where you can buy the product at no additional cost to you, and we will get a small kickback. Just a very small commission, just to help support the channel. But I just think it's a great product. Have you tried any of the other SSL plugins at all?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't actually. Because like most hobby home studio engineers, you always have to watch the pennies. So
yeah,
if money was no object, I'd probably buy every plugin under the sun. There's the age-old argument, of course, is that how many plugins do you need when basically they all do the same thing? But I would definitely be tempted, obviously, using plugins that directly manufactured from SSL, because the company manufactures the hardware. So they must be able to model that, or however they actually get all that sound into the plugin. They must be able to do it very well. So I haven't actually used any SSL plugins directly manufactured or supplied by SSL themselves.
Yeah, I mean they are amazing. I've got a few now. I've got the SSL EQ2, which is it's your typical like EQ that's it's very much kind of set up like the FabFilter-esque style EQ, but it's great. It's got loads of different features on there, even mid-side processing, all that goodness, all the band solos and things like that. Or it's not band solos, but you know what I mean. It's like filter solos and things like that. So I've got that one. I've got the saturator, and I'm trying to think what else I've got. I'm sure I've got a channel strip, because they do so many different channel strips as well. They do some real great plugins, but they're always, well, not always on sale, but you quite often find you'll get a featured one on sale, and it's around about the 30 quid mark. And for that price, I just think they're great. So I think that one's real worthy for people to have a look at. What have you got for your first?
Money. Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So what have you got as your first news item, Tony?
Well, it's not exactly new news, but it's a bit of old news. But I suppose with a new twist on it. I did pick up, I use iZotope plugins quite a lot, and I got an email. Basically, iZotope, Brainworks, and Plugin Alliance are now part of Native Instruments. I mean, this is nothing new. I think it was back in 2022 when iZotope and Native Instruments and Plugin Alliance and Brainworks, they all came together and they formed a group called Soundwide. But I don't think this particular brand name resonated with anybody particular. It was a bit complicated. So the latest news is I think there's going to be more integration now between Native Instruments, iZotope, Brainworks, and Plugin Alliance. So in fact, they're going to be one big, huge group. And I think this gives new marketing opportunities. They can probably now start to produce more joint videos. You'll probably see a lot more cooperation between the two. But as a iZotope user, I have quite a few iZotope plugins and use Ozo 10, Neutron 4, and various other types of iZotope plugins, is you'll find that the way that you update your product, at the moment you use the product portal using iZotope. I think actually your updates to future products that you buy from iZotope, or even probably from Brainworks and Plugin Alliance, will now actually be consolidated into probably the Native Instruments plugin update, whatever they call it. It's the main program where you do all your updates. I forget what the name is. So I think that's going to be the major change. So it's a bit of old news, bit of new use. And this will of course have implication for owners of plugins from Plugin Alliance, Brainworks, and iZotope. We'll probably see that the delivery point for our products will probably consolidate it into one particular group. Yeah, there's a link to the article. I mean, we can put it in the program notes after the show.
Yeah,
as a bit more information.
Yeah.
For example, they say there's going to be more educational content and stories featuring iZotope and Brainworks products. There's going to be more cross-brand integration, ranging from product features to new bundle offers. So I think that's another good thing. I already have seen this in some areas where you will now get cross discounts. So if you're an iZotope product owner, you can now get a certain amount and a discount off Compact. Is it called Contact, yeah. Contact 14. So maybe this will be good news for us as consumers, plugin buyers, audio engineers, maybe we can get our hands on some of this gear at more affordable prices. And hopefully that what I do like about Isotope, for example, there's a loyalty scheme. So if you've actually shelved out a lot of cash up front for an Isotope product, then when you want to upgrade, that obviously is not at full price again. I think that's common industry standard, but I think you'll find that there'll be more of this, and hopefully more of this will come online with the closer integration of these three companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I noticed is going back to Plugin Boutique. I love Plugin Boutique. I get a load of plugins from, a good fair majority of my plugins through Plugin Boutique. And one thing I've noticed now is you can start to get the Plugin Alliance plugins through Plugin Boutique. So they were historically you're always able to get the Isotope and I'm not sure I wasn't too sure about the native instruments, but Isotope you could certainly get on there. But you can now get some of the Brainworks and Plugin Alliance plugins via Plugin Boutique. And I think that's quite important because not everyone likes a subscription model, do they? I mean, we was talking about this the other day with some of the business subscriptions. I mean, I've probably got 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 or 10 different subscriptions for various things. So to have the ability to buy things outright, and if you go direct through, say, Plugin Alliance, once again, some of these plugins can run into the £200-300. But having something that, if they work in partnership with something like Plugin Boutique, and now to have, the addition of some of the Brainworks and the Plugin Alliance plugins via a platform like that, where they already had the Isotope stuff, I think it's just going to be great for the end user, isn't it?
Absolutely. Point of delivery. And I think that when you're updating products, we talked about it earlier this morning when we were sort of offline before we came on to do the show, is that when you're updating operating systems and Apple bring out a new operating system, be it Ventura or whatever, of course, the game that we all play is you're constantly then updating all your plugins, and you're having different portals, different manufacturers will be updating at different times. For example, now with Native Instruments and Plugin Alliance and Isotope, if you just went to one application that would update all your products at once, that obviously I think makes life a little bit easier. Yeah. And you're not having to worry about, shall I upgrade my OS, and then how many other updates will I need to carry out for various plugins and software I have on my system. So hopefully that might help. I don't think it's going to solve the problem 100%. But there again, closer integration maybe on development of software and on product delivery might be a little bit tighter. I think that could be an advantage.
Fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. And for my next news item was these. And I don't know if you've seen these before, Tony, but these are the Ollo Audio S5X. And I'll tell you what, these are absolutely amazing. So these are new products released by Ollo Audio. And Ollo Audio, they are what I call they're a bespoke boutique headphone company based out in Slovenia. And I'll tell you what, these are absolutely amazing. I had the S4X, and I've had them before, and they were really good. They are premium open back headphones, but the S5X have basically taken that one step further and introduced some new, I don't know what's necessarily new technologies, but some new ways of thinking. So these were released back in April, and they are, I mean, to be fair, they are just blooming amazing. The spiel behind it, so this is some of the information released by Ollo Audio, is they're open back premium headphones for mixing and mastering. They're actually advertised as being designed and optimized for binaural mix translation between headphones and speakers, which was quite interesting. But they've actually tuned these for immersive audio. And by looking on their website, there's so many different videos about how they went into an Atmos room and they've kind of measured all different things and about where they were taking the measurements from and the placement of their what I call their measurement dummy, and even the way they used the microphones in the ears on the dummy. It was just amazing the level of detail. But they've tuned these more towards immersive. But I'll be honest with you, I've not used them for immersive yet. So all of the mixes and masters that I've been working on with these have all been stereo, and they sound amazing. And I don't know if when I mentioned to you a little while ago, the last TSE album song that I mastered for you, that was done exclusively on these headphones.
Really?
And one of the things I wanted to know from you guys was about translation. And I think it was John, the bass player, said, well, it didn't really sound any different between when I mastered the previous album on monitors. And that was great. That was great feedback for me. So I just think these are absolutely amazing. I'm doing a full review of these. So there'll be a review coming out soon, and I've started to do the filming over this last few days. So there's some more information coming out on that. But they're open back premium headphones for mixing and mastering. They do sound great for stereo mixing and mastering as well as immersive. One thing I will say about these compared to the S4X is it was put to me that they're a little bit brighter. And yes, you can hear it a bit brighter. I actually prefer that. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, for me, I don't know what your thoughts are about the headphone market. Is kind of, you've got a lot of the low end, let's say up to the £150, £200 mark. You've got a lot of the high end around the £1,000 plus mark. But there's a lot in the middle there that kind of, yeah, they're better, but are they, it's kind of like, do you get value for money in that range? And for me, these were coming in, I think these were around about 450 quid, but they perform so much better. And I think that's where these can really excel. They're going to be a step above from, some of the, some of the more affordable options, but you're going to get great results that are going to be comparable to like £1,000 plus headphone. So I just think they're absolutely great what they're doing. So full review on that one coming soon. And I really want to get, ideally, Tony, I will get you a pair of these because I think you'll love them. And they'll be really good. So Ollo Audio S5X, there'll be links in the description down below, and there will be a full review on that one coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with studio monitors and headphones, it depends on your listening environment. And of course, if you're in professional audio work or even just doing it as a hobby, you really want to get accurate information.
Yeah.
I know that some people swear blind on speakers and they just use headphones just to kind of double check what they're hearing. And some people like me, for example, where I don't have a treated room and I'm not in a studio environment and I have some okay speakers, is I'm more reliant on good, decent quality headphones to actually get the translation that I want and also really understand and hearing what's going on. So I think there's some really good mid-range budget options. I'll say budget, there are some good mid-range options. And of course, as at the high end, of course, is that you're dealing with obviously, the creme de la creme when it comes to monitoring. For me, I use a couple of Barodynamic, I think they're called DT90 Pro X, and they're open back. And I get good translation actually with these. I find that they're very comfortable to wear. And I think these were about originally about €250 or something like that, because I live in Germany. We obviously deal in euros, not in pounds or dollars. They were reduced in price. I think they came down to like 100, 180 or something like that. So it's not top market end, but definitely for home studio users who don't want to spend that kind of money on a really, really expensive headphone. Barodynamic makes some good ones. You don't have to spend an absolute fortune to get a good listening experience. But certainly I'll be taking a look at the headphones that you just recommended, because personally, I think I probably need to upgrade a bit. As I said, some people say, speakers, no problem. I can actually understand, I can hear what's going on with the audio. But there again, I think you really are dependent on having a really good listening environment. You probably need some room treatment. You probably need to be in sort of a really good studio environment. Some people use SonarWorks Reference ID to get the optimal, obviously, frequency responses they want from their speakers, and they use headphones just to double check. But certainly I'm in the market for a new set of headphones, and with great interest, Smudge. After the show, I'll be checking out the link that you'll put in the description below, and testing them out.
This is something hopefully some people will love. This is why I say that these are bespoke boutique. Because this is the level of attention to detail these guys go into, is each set of headphones comes with this. Not only do you get like a certificate of authenticity and things like that, but every set of headphones comes with their own frequency response measurements.
That's excellent.
So if you're looking at things like EQ correction, SonarWorks. I mean, SonarWorks is probably a little bit different, because you could, in theory, send this information across to SonarWorks and pay for a custom profile.
Yeah.
But it will help hopefully some users who haven't got the capacity to do that, because I think a custom profile is about 120, 130 quid.
Yeah.
And if you think the overall SonarWorks is about the same price, so you're basically doubling the price to have a custom profile.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But if you have something like this, you could effectively look at that and kind of make your own custom EQ curve.
Yeah.
Which I think could be really, really useful for lots of people as well. So I just think they are great, and so more information on that one coming soon. We'll leave links in the description down below.
I think one of the big problems actually for home studio engineers is the environment. Is always the low end. For me personally, I think it's always the most difficult thing to try and get right, and that's where having a really good set of speakers, if you don't have treatment, having a really good set of headphones really counts, because you need to hear that low end information. You can't really hear it on speakers, depending on the type of speakers you have. I mean, if you've got the most expensive set of speakers in the world, you might hear it, but I think it's essential to have a really good set of good quality speakers, headphones, more importantly, headphones that you can trust. I think it's all about how you hear. Everyone's hearing is probably slightly different. So for me, it's always been about building trust in what I'm hearing. I like the headphones I've got, but obviously spending more money, you'll probably get a set of headphones that will probably help that process for you. You get more trust in what you're hearing. So I'll definitely be checking out the link, as I said, when you post it in the after show notes, Smudge.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's like I say, we can do some. Maybe we'll do a feature on actually using headphones and about how to approach using a pair of headphones. There's so many uses and so many applications in the audio industry that we can talk for hours and hours about things like that. So maybe we'll take that forward and we'll use that as one of the spotlights at some point in the future. Yeah,
there's a definite case for, there's always people talk about close back or hard, what's the difference? What's the difference between close back and not close back? The other one's close.
Open backs. Yeah. And then you got a close back, open back, semi-open back. And it's like,
in which scenario is one the best? I think there's probably not too controversial, but there are some instances, of course, where you'd want to use a close back, and then some scenarios, of course, where open back is preferable when mixing. Yeah, we could go over that in a future video, Smudge.
Fantastic. Definitely. So what's up next for you then, Tony?
Yeah, nothing earth-shattering. I'm going to say the word waves, and probably everyone's going to throw things at their screen or just throw their tablet out the window, because they caused a bit of controversy a few months back, didn't they? I never really understood why they were going to offer a subscription service and then completely give up with their paid plans or the ability not to buy the plugin outright. But of course, you never buy the plugin outright with Waves, as we all know. Yeah, I mean, basically, you just buy the license to use it, and then you're going to have to upgrade it basically when it doesn't work on your OS anymore. But at the end of the day, and they're always on sale. But I thought it was interesting for one thing, because they've launched a new set of plugins called Gems, and when I saw the image, they reminded me a lot of some of the plugin interfaces that you see now on Artura. And some of the plugins, can't remember the names, but I thought, well, that looks quite interesting. And these actually are about sound design. So the effects have been designed with a distinctive sonic signature. And they can shape vocals, add motion to instruments, infuse drums with character, and they've got really simple and user-friendly control. So I thought this was slightly different for Waves. And yeah, it's a new product. There are 10 new plugins coming out. There are 5 of them that are available in the Waves Essential and Waves Ultimate. And you get the additional 5 plugins are only available, I think, if you use the Waves Ultimate subscribers. Now, I haven't checked out the website to see whether you can download and buy these as individual products, but I thought it was interesting that Waves were moving towards these kind of sound generating or sound altering plugins, rather than just being straightforward analog reproductions, like their LA2A or 1176 or CLA series. So, yeah, of course, the Waves Essential is $14.99 a month, or I think it's $149 a year. And I think the Waves Ultimate is something like $24.99 a month or $249 a year. I still actually use Waves plugins, and providing I don't update my operating system, I can still continue to use them, of course. There are a few that I do like to use actually on mixes. For example, I like some of the Greg Wells series, the Mix-Centric from Greg Wells. It's a bit like cheating, but I do actually like that plugin. The other one that I use from Waves quite a lot is the Vocal Rider. Sometimes, once or twice, I'll use Vocal Rider. Just saves a lot of time. Instead of actually using clip gain to even out a vocal, of course, as you know, you can use Vocal Rider just to automate the entire thing for you. So it just makes if you like that vocal editing a little bit easier. And I think it's quite useful before you start pushing your vocal into a compressor and trying to get the compressor to work really, really hard to contain some of those really differences in volume in a vocal and those transients, is that Vocal Rider would just smooth things out and give you a good start. So, your compressor's not having to go completely crazy to try and actually control the dynamics. You probably save yourselves using serial compression, because if you've evened out the vocal dynamic range using Vocal Rider, then you're putting hardly any work on your existing compressor, and then maybe it's quite happy you can get away with just using one compressor in your mix. So, you know, the less plugins we have in our mix, probably the better. You know, it's better for the CPU, and I think that's a good thing. So I thought it was interesting that Waves were moving away from this particular type of plugin. I may check it out. I don't know whether you can download and trial them, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for Waves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when they announced all this subscription thing, I was certainly of the opinion where, you know, I spat my dummy out, I threw my toys out the pram, and I deleted my whole Waves account. I thought, I'm not having that. But it's good for people, like you say, rather than just going through like an EQ or compressor, to have something that's got, you know, it's been advertised and marketed as something that's got character. I think that's the way that, you know, I don't know about you, but sometimes we can get so bogged down in the technical aspects, don't we? Sometimes it's kind of like, no, actually, you just need to go back to the music, just think about adding a little bit of character here, a bit of character there, rather than thinking, well, do I need to get an EQ for this part, a compressor for this part, a saturator for this part, maybe, you know, what do they call them, like a bit crusher or something like that? You know what I mean? Just having something that's got elements of that already built in into just this, you know, simple to use interface. I think it's good, certainly for someone who's, you know, maybe starting out in the music creation process. So I think it's certainly something that's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, it's always nice to see plugins that actually, when I put my producer hat on, that can actually help you shape tones or just make a sound inherently interesting. I mean, you can take like a wave synthesizer and it sounds like every other wave synthesizer, or like a Moog patch or something, but you want to sort of mix it up and make it sound a bit interesting. And I'm really attracted by these plugins that can alter the sound. It's about sound design at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, I grew up buying early synthesizers back in the 80s and 90s, and you just used to use the presets, unfortunately, without learning how to program the things. Modular synthesis is quite a thing these days. People are into that. But, you know, you do have to be a bit of a nerd and a bit of a techie. And you're trying to do good sound design. I think you need that sort of technical knowledge behind you. But if you can actually get a plugin, as you say, that's really easy to understand, and you can just twiddle a few knobs and you can get an interesting sound, I think that's quite attractive. But also from a production point of view, you're going to get to the end point a lot quicker. You know, you don't have to master the technology before you start being creative. I think what these plugins actually do enable you to be creative very quickly. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm doing production and mixing, I don't want to spend a ton of time making decisions. I just want to make a decision and move on. And, you know, we all know music and we trust our ears. So if something sounds good, it is good. And how you got there at the end of the day, whether you're a purist and you think, oh, I used modular synthesis to design a particular sound, and I'm proud because I know the technology, but whether, you know, somebody who doesn't have that level of knowledge in the background can just hit a button and tweak a knob and get the same effect. I think that's all power to actually creativity and making more music.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like, I was liking. Try and give you an example of this the other day, because obviously I'm a guitarist as well, so I love my guitars. But when you're trying to write music, and when you're then sat there for God knows how long trying to find the right amp model, what kind of amp sound do you want? Then you fiddle with the amp sounds, and you think, oh, what about the cabinet? Am I using the right impulse response? And do I need boosting beforehand? Do I need a pedal? Do I need? And it's like, before you think about it, all your musical creativity's gone, hasn't it? You've spent God knows how long going through tweaking all these different settings. And sometimes if you've got something there that's just, you know, a couple of knobs, and you think, I like that, great, let's record it, let's crack on, let's move on to the next thing. That's just a win-win, isn't it, if you've got something like that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I used to hate about, while I still play guitar, is the endless amount of times you would spend tweaking knobs and trying to get, you know, chase this magic bullet, the magic guitar tone that you wanted. I did this the other day when I was trying to write a piece of music. I sat in front of my DAW and I wanted to come up with a good guitar tone. And an hour later, I still hadn't got anywhere. And I just thought, I'm going to go make a cup of tea. This is just like too much like hard work. So, yeah, I kind of, my approach would be to, especially in all aspects of sound design, is to probably take a preset by somebody who knows what they're doing and then just tweak it if I don't like anything about it. And I think I'm not alone in this. I'll just take a guitar amp preset. Yeah, that sounds good. And then maybe I'll swap out a pedal, put a new pedal in, change the mic on the cabinet on the software. But at least I'm not starting from zero. That's my approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree with that. So the next up one from me is I don't know if you've seen this one. It's the SSL UF1 release. And this
Yeah,
is
I did see it, and then I almost like died when I saw the price.
yeah. I tell you what though, I think this is the thing is now in the market when you see a single fader DAW controller. So that's what the UF1 is in essence. It's a single fader DAW controller, and it's part of the SSL UF series. And yeah, it's a bit on the pricier side. So this is coming in at £599.99, so about 600 quid. But the thing I like about it is more than just a standard DAW controller. So firstly, it's part of the UF range. And if anyone has or hasn't seen the UF range, the UF range at the moment consists of the UF1, which is the DAW controller, the UF8, which is the fader. So it's an 8 fader unit. And then you've also got the UC1, which is the channel strip controller. So all of this is digital. So it's trying to emulate the feel of a console. But one of the things, a lot of complaints about the UF8, because I think the UF8 and the UC1, they were obviously first, and the UF1's now released. So they released the 8 fader unit, and they released the channel strip controller, but there was no transport buttons. So they've now introduced the UF1, which is effectively, it's the transport side. But there's so much more to it than this. And some of the interesting features that I saw was the transport jog wheel for a hands-on DAW transport experience. And I think this was one of the things with a lot of these single fader DAW controllers, you're still reliant on the mouse. So yes, you can press, play, record, enable, stop, and you can go through plugins and you can scroll through tracks. But one of the things they don't do very well is scrubbing through the timeline. So you're still kind of very much reliant on a mouse, and you've got one hand here doing this, and you've got your mouse doing here with this. But they've introduced this transport jog wheel, which I think is great. So if anyone does video editing and they see some of the stuff that Blackmagic Design do with their with some of their video editing hardware, is you've got those jog wheels, so you can go through a video timeline, and this is what the transport jog wheel kind of does. So it does the same experience where you can scrub through the timeline, all from this controller. But the other thing as well is they've got 2 LCD displays. So when you open some of the plugins, so for example, you get a metering plugin that comes with I think it's with the SSL 360 software, which is something that comes bundled with all these products. But they've got like this new metering style plugin. And when you open that plugin, it actually shows the metering plugin inside of one of these LCD displays as well, which I think was really good. So you can almost have that as part of your whole monitoring control setup. And rather than keep looking at the screen, you've got it on your controller, which I thought was really, really good. But they've also got the large multi-purpose encoders as well, and you can really kind of fine tweak and tune some of these into to what you want them to do, which I thought was really good as well. All of this is compatible with the what they call the SSL 360 software. And I don't really know too much about the software, but what I do know is it's a console style workflow. And we were talking about this earlier on, is sometimes it's kind of like, if you've got a DAW that's got all your tracks and you go into a mixer, and if you've got to start adding plugins or creating templates and things like that, yeah, that might be good for some. But sometimes if you can get a mix, say like 75%, 80% there without reaching for a plugin, that can just really, once again, just speed up your workflow. And this is what I liked about the 360 software, is you've got that console style workflow without reaching for different plugins, whether they're stock plugins or third party. So I just thought it was a really well thought out product. Yes, it's on the pricier side at 600 quid. And I think some of the other bits as well, I think the UF8 and the UC1, I think they're in that price range of around 800 quid to like £1,000. So if you get one of each, you're obviously looking at about £2,500. But if you want to have something like an SSL style console workflow with 9 faders, bank switchable with the obviously the transport jog wheel, and you've got the channel strip that you can control via its own controller as well, I think it could be a really good option for a lot of people. And the other thing I made note of here is it's not just a one-stop shop where you just chuck it on your desk. They've engineered it in a way where you've got lots of different angles of elevation as well. So someone for me who's got like a dodgy shoulder, where he's getting older and a bit more decrepit now, having that, the ability to have it move with you in the angles that you like, I just thought it's just a really well thought out product. Yes, it's not cheap, but I just think it takes what's already out there and takes it up a notch. I think they also they made reference in their marketing material about the faders. They've said not all faders are created equally, and I think they've taken some of that old vintage SSL console style fader control and the way that the faders move, and kind of really introduced that into some of the products as well. So I think it's it just looks like a really good option, although not for the faint-hearted when it comes from budget perspective.
No, my initial thoughts on that would be this seems to be aimed at the sort of semi or professional audio engineer who maybe works in a studio or has worked in a studio and wants to bring a little bit of that into their home studio. I think that's probably the market. If you're used to that tactile feel of moving a fader, and you're used to working on a console and the software is integrated, even with one fader, I can see how that would be quite an attractive option, but probably not certainly at the beginner or the lower end of the budget market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I do have a production controller. I'm not going to say which one. I'll let people guess. But I find that that would be really cool. I'll have faders and I can get this kind of tactile feel when I'm mixing. And I can actually, instead of park my mouse and my keyboard and put it away in a drawer. But as you quite rightly say, you can't do that. Certainly when you're moving around the session and you're looking at an arranger window, or you're trying to scan channels using some mixer window, it's a little bit chunky and a little bit slow using my production controller. And then you invariably always just reach for the mouse and the keyboard. So I don't think these things will ever replace the mouse and the keyboard. I find, for example, when I'm using my production controller, sometimes I literally, when I can't get the balance, say, between the kick and bass drum, is that I will actually then use the faders on my construction on my production controller, and I literally just close my eyes. And there's something about moving the fader up and down, and then you hear it. You close your eyes, and then you can hear when you're getting somewhere near that balance that you want. And that goes for any kind of instrumentation or anything in the mix. So I am a fan of production controllers. If money was no object, I certainly would look at the SSL, because obviously the company is legendary, and I'm sure they've worked obviously their technology into the software and the hardware to get that SSL console feel. Yeah, so I mean, obviously that's attractive, but I think it's a great product. But we're seeing more of this on now in the marketplace, aren't we, Smudge? So more of these hardware manufacturers like SSL, I can't think of any off the top of my head. They're bringing their products and trying to obviously, instead of paying out thousands and thousands of euros for a full-fledged mixing console, is they're trying to bring that experience into the home studio environment, which I think is a good thing if you've got the money.
But don't you think, and this is one of my pet peeves with DAWs, let's say, and we're talking DAW manufacturers here. Have you ever had the occasion when you've got, say, a 50-60 song track, or 50-60 tracks in your song, right? And you're using your scroll wheel to go between the tracks in the mixer. How many times have you had your fader move just by using the scroll wheel, because there's no option to turn that off? That is so annoying.
That is so annoying, yeah, especially when you spend ages working on levels and balancing, yeah. That can be a little bit of a pain. Yeah, I've been there, absolutely, 100%.
Or it could be the colours. You kind of at the end find, okay, I'm going to go to this bit of the screen and scroll around here, and then you find you've accidentally gone down too low and you've gone through the colour section. So rather than scrolling the tracks, you end up scrolling through the colours. Yeah. Oh Christ! So I'll go up a bit further, and then you do the scrolly bit there, and you realise that you're now on the pan pots, and you're scrolling the pan pots rather than the tracks. It's like,
yeah, and it does have an impact, because there are so many decisions to make in a mix. Of course, is that if you're having to spend a lot of time fighting and going back repairing something you've destroyed, it can be a little bit distracting. You're trying to mix something, I don't know, a typical mixing task. Say, let's just try and sort of work out the sidechain compression between kick and bass, common thing. And then you're scrolling up and down through your tracks and through your buses, and you've changed the color scheme. And then instead of actually doing that, you've got to spend 5 minutes repairing what you've just broken, which is annoying to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think certainly from that perspective, control surfaces, I think, are going to be it's certainly going to be a way forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, the price point's a bit to balk at, but it is what it is, unfortunately. So yeah. But next up, I'm really excited about this one, Tony, because I think you've come across this one. I think this could be a really good, good bit of kit for someone. So what's your next news item?
Yeah, I found this very interesting news article, and I was drawn towards it because one of the things that I do, my many hats, of course, for our band, that's for Mardo Effect, is I do our social media, and we've got a very basic website that's powered by a company called Bandzoogle. It's pretty much what you type is what you get kind of website, a bit like Wix and other people. And I thought this was interesting. There's a company called I think they're called Soundations. I think that's the name of the company.
Soundstation, I think it says there.
Yeah, Soundation is the name of the company. Well, actually, they come up with a concept where basically you can have use a DAW, but it's all online. I think it's basically sort of like server-based software, and I think you pay $4.99 for a subscription, and then you can basically access the software, all the audio and all the plugins, and the DAW is completely online. I think actually they do have a free version, but you're limited, I think, to just 3 projects. Anyway, there is a price tier. And of course, the more you pay, the more projects you can run and the more features there are available. But one thing they actually offered was they now actually will give you embed a legitimate audio workstation right in your website. So what you can do is that if you're working with using this software with somebody online, and you're collaborating and you're mixing and you're recording together, you can now actually then share this on your website. And the idea is that I think it was explained in the video that I saw, is that you go to your project, you copy the code, and you paste the code then into your website using some HTML window, and then that will appear on your website. So you can actually embed your DAW on your website. And I thought this was really cool. I thought about using it maybe to show off a mix that I had. Say, for example, you got a session in a DAW. Of course, you can't upload this anywhere, but you could export the audio, yeah, of your project. You could upload this to this particular product, and then you can make the audio available online, and then you can embed it in your website. So not only could you show off your music on your website, for example, here's our latest song from our latest album. You could then actually have a version of the DAW and the mix, and you could actually then upload a stem mix, for example. You won't have to upload all the tracks, but you could upload a stem mix of the drums and keyboards, and you can embed that on your website. And this is our latest song, and this is what it looks like in a DAW view. And then people could then play it themselves. They could solo out the keyboards. They could solo out, for example, the guitars or the drums. I'm not certain whether that functionality is available. Just actually using this method of actually just copying the code and then embedding it on your website. But I thought it was very, very interesting. I'll certainly be looking into it a little bit more. Again, I'll send you over the link and you can incorporate it into the notes. If you do use the tool, it's a real-time collaboration tool. So literally, if you're working on a project online, you don't have to have any software installed onto your workstation, probably not even plugins. You can actually just use this DAW online, and you can collaborate real-time. So it's a bit like a workspace area where you can collaborate and work. It might be useful just for coming up with ideas. You know, I mean, you're working with a musician, 700 kilometers away. He lays down a guitar track, you lay down a bass track. And it's all available online. So I thought that was quite interesting. And I honestly think that with AI, and for example, we just saw that Apple released Logic Pro for iPad. And the whole idea is trying to sort of make online collaboration and sharing and remote recording a lot easier. I just thought this was very interesting.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this, right? And here's a scenario for you. So if let's say you're an independent artist, right? And the big thing with independent artists at the moment is going to be fan engagement, because it's kind of like let's say you're trying to generate interest, you're trying to generate, let's say, a little bit of revenue for your endeavors, and then fan engagement is going to be crucial for you. So let's say you've got your band website and then you've got a new idea for a song. This could be great. You could actually use this and embed it in your website, upload, the start of your song, let's say, with a caption saying, "What would you do?" And you share this with all your fans, so they can kind of like help you along, not necessarily help you along the process, but just actually interact with that particular song. That could be something that could be great use for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. This model seems quite affordable. I don't think, again, it's subscription based, so it's $4.99. You can't get anything free these days, it seems. But yeah, I think it's quite interesting, and that's exactly what I thought at the beginning about fan engagement. You want people to engage in your music. And I thought this would be actually a great way to do it, because some people are just interested. I think they like a song, but how did the piano sound? What type of bass guitar was that? And then they could just isolate and just listen and say, "Ah, yeah, I think that was recorded with a Rickenbacker bass." Yeah, some people are like that, but there again, as you say, you could use it as a tool to say, where do you think I should go with this song? Or, or for example, you could post previous versions of songs. I know that some musicians like to, after they've released a particular song, saying, well, we did have another version. This did actually have a guitar solo, but we cut it out. So you could actually then post this and embed it on your website and saying, this is actually what the song used to sound like with this solo. So maybe the visual aspect of actually seeing the individual tracks on screen could be interesting as well. I mean, I don't know. Some people probably just want to consume music and just hear it, but I thought it was intriguing. And I think you're seeing a lot of companies now who are being quite innovative in terms of audio production.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great spot. And there is a cost attached to it, but it's not like you're paying £20 a month for a full-fledged DAW kind of thing. If you can get something that's at a much lower price point, that's something that you can find different interactions with it and embed it into your website. I think it can open up so many opportunities. So I think
I like the innovation around it. This probably might not have any legs. The company may not ever sort of like continue to offer this product. There might be, generally, if these things take off, they're purchased by larger concerns, aren't they? And people like Apple or Amazon or somebody will come in, will buy the technology and incorporate it obviously into their own umbrella and portfolio of products. But I thought it was interesting. I would strongly recommend that people just look at the link when you post it at the end of this show or video and just go and check out a couple of the videos, because it looks like that it's actually a startup. One of the guys who actually is doing the video explaining how to use the product, it looks like as if it's a startup company. So I just thought it was intriguing, but we're definitely seeing more of this, I think, actually in the business, so to speak. And I think we'll just see more products of this particular type coming online.
Yeah, absolutely. And we won't just talking about startups, and we won't use this we won't discuss this too much today, but I think it's really important. You make an important point there in supporting these companies, these small companies, and we will be doing something, won't we? And we'll be discussing around Samply, and they're a new company. And for those who are interested, they're effectively, think about it like a file sharing stroke workspace solution for bands, artists, engineers. I think it's just a great all-in-one stop shop. But they're a relatively new company as well, and we me and Tony have been using Samply for various different projects, which is great. So we'll have to do a feature on them as well. But I think it's worth giving a shout out to the companies out there who are innovating, new startups, new things. We need to be supporting these people because they are coming up with some real great ideas. So it's certainly one that is.
Samply is a great product, and for me, it's a bit like an audio file sharing platform on steroids.
Yeah,
and I know that they're actually developing very fast. I saw an announcement from them the other day. They're bringing on new teams of developers, and they were talking about standardizing their code, which they've written the initial software in, and trying to standardize that, because as they expand, they're bringing more developers and they have to agree on a standard of coding to obviously then develop the product. But what I've seen so far, it's very, very good, and hopefully they'll just go on to better things. But as you say, Smudge, we're going to do a dedicated program on Samply and how we use it, and the facilities and features that it offers.
Absolutely. So that's the end of our news roundup. And now this is going to get into the nitty gritty there. And you're going to have to put up with me talking, not ranting, let's say, but we're going to go into our spotlight topic. And our spotlight topic this week is going to be, is AI mastering? And this is a topic that's close to my heart. So I'm very passionate about this. But I'm going to preface this and say two things. I'm not going to be discussing my opinions on whether it's good or not, because that's not down to me to decide. It's down for you to decide as the audience. And I'm an engineer. I'm biased. So I've got to rule out the bias. So it's not going to be down to me to say whether it's good or not. I'm also not going to discuss whether it's something that others should use. There are different views and different, let's be clear, it serves a purpose. And if that purpose suits you and it fits in with your budgetary requirements and it does the job that you're looking for, then go ahead. But it's just the topic I wanted to discuss is AI mastering? So for those who don't know, AI mastering is effectively using algorithms to analyze a collection of music, let's call it a music pool, and it analyzes that information, and then it's going to use its algorithm to master your music based on its analysis of the music pool. So yeah, it's going to analyze a collection of music and then process a mix based on its analysis of the song pool. To discuss whether that is mastering, I think we first need to define what is mastering. And this is something that I picked up in my recent Skillshare course. I know, Tony, you've taken a look at. You've done me the good pleasure of taking a look at. And I define mastering into really 4 key areas. So you've got quality control. So mastering is, you've got a quality control aspect, listening for pops and clicks, clipping, distortion, and other issues. Objective listening. So it's ensuring that the final sound matches the artist's intent. And I think that's one of the clear points here, is matching the artist's intent. When you're mastering, you can go around and sometimes the artist, they may not be too clear on what they want the final sound to look like, but generally you'll have discussions around, well, when you want it mastered, what do you want the final product to sound like? What do you want the final song to sound like? And you'll get that information. So it's trying to ensure that you master in a way that matches the artist's intent. You've got then coming on to the creative enhancement aspect. So it's enhancing the song by creating a polished final version of the song. There is creative element to it because you are manipulating the sound of that file, whether it may only be by a small amount, but it could be trying to enhance a certain aspects and doing this. So there's that creative enhancement element. And then you've got the final presentation. So you've got the increase in the overall loudness to an appropriate level for your medium. You've got your fades to ensure you've got the smooth transitions between songs, especially when it comes to an album. You've got the metadata information, which is, yeah, okay, let's be clear. And Tony, you'll agree to this. Metadata in mastering is less important when you use a digital distributor, because as an independent artist, you have to upload your own metadata, don't you, when you're releasing through TuneCore, I think it is you guys use, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We use TuneCore, yeah.
So it's probably a little bit less important from that aspect, from a mastering perspective, but certainly from the client's perspective, you need to make sure you get your metadata right, because when it comes to credit and royalty purposes, that needs to be done. And historically, you've always been able to add the metadata into CDs and MP3s. You can't do it into WAV files, so it's a little bit less important from that perspective. And that's something that the client needs to be really hot on to make sure they're getting the credit and royalties that you guys deserve. But also creating necessary files for release. You got to think about your 16-bit 44.1 files, or is it a 24-bit 48K file? Do you need an MP3? And the list goes on and on and on. So you've got these 4 main aspects. I was thinking about this the other day: does AI mastering do that? And does it hit those above requirements? So let's think about quality control. And Tony, feel free to kind of jump in here, because I don't want this to come across sounding like, this is biased. You shouldn't use this. You shouldn't use it. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. Yeah, the people have got to make their own decisions on whether it's something that's going to fit their need. But is there a quality control aspect to it? My understanding is no, it's not going to listen for things like pops and clicks. It's not going to listen for things like clipping and distortion. So it's kind of like, as a mastering engineer, if I get a mix that comes through and let's say it's coming through and it's clipping or it's got pops and clicks, and if it's something that I can't then, fix in the mastering stage, it's a duty of me to go back to the client and say, look, this is what I've noticed in your mix. We need to make a couple of adjustments here to really get the mix to shine before I then go on to master, to make sure it's the best quality possible. So you're not going to get that with the AI mastering. But the thing is, for me here, is this is the thing: it's the objective listening, ensuring the final sound matches the artist's intent. Is an AI going to do that? I can't see a way in which it will.
Well, no, I tend to agree. And the reason why I say this is that there are a lot of products out there. For example, Ozo 10, which is a very, very good mastering software. But it doesn't which I just purchased, and other ozone products, AI-based products. The whole concept is using the mix assistant is that you take your stereo mix, be it 24-bit, 44.1 or 48 kilohertz, whatever it is, audio file, and then you listen to it, and then it's going to try and match your mix against a curve, against an EQ curve, against everything, I think, compression and other bits and pieces, depending which version of ozone you have, which modules will be working to sort out your final end product or tone. It will finally try and then basically match your audio, obviously, to a perceived curve. So that can be, for example, I think Isotopes say, for example, that we've listened to thousands and thousands and thousands of mixes that people consider to be good mixes. And then it will try and match your particular audio file against that particular EQ curve, to the particular dynamics of that particular reference track that's been used through their machine learning. The problem, as you rightly say, if there's something inherently wrong with your recording, it's not going to pick that up.
No.
If it's something horrible, I mean, if your dynamics are really all over the place, or as you say, there are pops or clicks, or the guitar's not loud enough, or the vocals are way too loud, no amount of AI is going to obviously make all that correction. It's not suddenly going to take your badly out of tune vocals and make you sound like Aretha Franklin or George Michael or whatever, that, I think you're absolutely right, is one of the disadvantages. And I think that the trap that people fall into, again, I hate to say this because I'm not an super experienced audio engineer, but I've been there when I thought I just hit the magic button and suddenly I'm going to come out with a pro product. And that's the temptation. And that's, of course, what AI can't do. A lot of people, I think, are sold on the idea. They watch a YouTube video, somebody hits the mix assistant button, and everything's going to sound fantastic. It's going to be the best mix. It's going to stand up there with the legends. It's going to sound just like Chris Lord Alge. It's going to be like a Greg Wells mix. It's going to be radio ready. And they're really disappointed, actually, when they actually listen to the end result. But it's not, because there's something inherently wrong either with the quality of the recording, something inherently wrong with the mix. And of course, these AI products are actually not going to fix it. So I think you're right. In terms of quality control, these kind of tools are not the right tools for the job. You just have to use your ears and then experience. You just have to mix. And the more mixes you do, the more experience you become. And you know the red flags and you know the pitfalls. I think actually quality control is quite important. And I can't see how AI tools are really helpful, actually, in terms of quality control.
Yeah. I mean, there's two areas that really stick out for me is the objective listening and the creative enhancement side. Because I was thinking about this the other day, it's the challenge with AI. And let's once again, I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad. The audience needs to decide whether it's something that they enjoy or not. But it's the objective listening and the creative enhancement side of things is probably its biggest weakness. Because when you've got a situation where, like you say, it's machine learning, it's going to analyze a pool of music. We don't know what that pool of music is. We don't know if that's an expanding pool of music. And it could be a situation where if that pool is an expanding pool of music and it's then being fed other AI mastered music, then it's kind of like, well, it really needs to be kind of controlled in the way that's going to give meaningful results. And I think the challenge with AI is when it gets to this thing, it's the objective listening. It's not going to objectively listen to your song. What it's going to do is it's going to analyze your song and then analyze it against its pool of music and then make decisions based on the pool of music, quite frankly. And in this creative enhancement, a part of the creative enhancement is almost kind of treating the song in its own right. And when it comes to mastering, it's kind of, yes, we can use reference tracks to give us a good idea or a good picture of kind of where we would like it to go. But every song is its own beast. And I think this is the thing sometimes is I think mastering is kind of considered almost paint by numbers. It's kind of like the dynamics needs to be in this range, the EQ in this range, etc. It needs to be in this volume range. And it doesn't. Music is I know some people don't like to view music in this way, but music is art. It's our artistic expression through the form of music. And it's kind of, for me, it kind of almost gets to a stage where we are spending time and effort into creating something new and unique and personal, but then we are finishing it off in a situation where we're going to say, okay, we'll use an AI to do it. So it's no longer personal. So then trying to reference it against a pool of music. And I think that's one of the things I'd urge people to consider. It's not down to me once again to say whether you should use it or not as the audience. You can make your own decisions on that, especially when it comes to the financial aspect. If you can use an online service, you can get a subscription for, let's say, up £100 for unlimited uploads for the year. I'm not going to be able to do a year's worth of mastering for you for £100. Let's put it that way. But it's one of the benefits of using a mastering engineer, whether not necessarily me, just a human mastering engineer, is you're going to have that personal attention. You're going to get someone who's really going to be able to listen to the song in its own right, in its own way, and then say, it might be a case of the master engineer might take some reference tracks from you and say, well, I've listened to your reference tracks and I know what you're saying here, but you've got this real unique element to your song that can be we can enhance that to take that to that next level. And that's something that you're not going to be able to get. And one of the challenges through AI mastering. The final presentation kind of thing is, I think it's a bit of a difficult one to really because it's difficult to really make too much comment on, because obviously the fade kind of thing, is it going to, fades are personal. You're not really going to get too much fade information. It's just going to take your level up, or, that will take your level up to what it considers to be the right level. And we've discussed this before about the overall dynamics and when it comes to limiting and trying to get that balance between loudness and dynamic range. And I think the challenge for me is how much of it would the machine learning give that? If their pool in music is given, let's say, an average of -8 LUFS integrated, clearly that the machine learning is going to try and push it up to that level. But maybe your song maybe it's not dynamic enough to get to that level. So it's then well, where's that kind of middle ground? It's not going to give you that middle ground necessarily. So I think, for me, is it mastering for what it does? And I think this is the thing for me, is it will analyze the pool of music, and it will say, well, if the dynamic range of your song should be in this range, it will adjust the dynamics. If the EQ profile of your song needs to be in this range based on its pool, it will change the EQ profile. And in the same with stereo width and this, that, and the other. But just because it uses those tools, does it make it mastering? Does it give it that element to call it mastering? And I was thinking about different examples which I can use. I have a saw in the shed. I can use that saw to cut wood. Does it make me a carpenter?
Yeah.
I can tell you now, you look at some of the abominations I've made over years, I'm definitely no carpenter. So it's is it mastering? I was thinking, well, if I don't think it's mastering, because there's no objective listening, there's no real creative enhancement. It's basically making moves based on its analysis of other music. The final presentation it's based on other music. Is it really mastering? And my conclusion would be no. I'll let others make their own conclusion. What would you say? Would you say it's mastering?
No, I wouldn't say it's mastering. I'm not a mastering engineer. I've mastered the odd few bits and pieces for friends and colleagues because they just didn't know where to start. But no, it's not mastering in the traditional sense of the word. I mean, it's quite interesting. You could go back to a time before all these AI products. Basically, I thought about this as you were talking. If you say, for example, you're trying to match reference a particular song, or you want to get to a particular sound. In the old days, you probably would just have like 12, 15, 16 references, and then you would constantly do an A/B, and you would actually you could use tools to look at meters, for example, to see, whether you're on the right course, or going the right direction for things like dynamic control or for tonal balance. But essentially, you would just have like 15, 16, I don't know how many reference tracks you wanted, where you wanted to go. And you would just use your ears. You would just then listen to your track and listen to the reference track, and whether you're in the ballpark. Of course, what AI does, it does the same thing, but on steroids. It actually takes away the choice of you selecting 16 tracks to obviously use as a reference. In fact, they say they use thousands and thousands. So therefore, it's using obviously a much bigger pool by which you can compare your audio to. And then it's essentially doing the same thing. It's replacing you in the task of having to listen to all the references, take decisions about, about dynamic control, about tonal balance, about stereo width, and it's actually coming up with something for you. So, but that's going back to your saw analogy. That's how I see it. It's like a tool. So basically hitting the mix assistant is like grabbing the saw, and then you're starting to sort of like make decisions based on using the saw, but you don't actually have an end product. So I think the analogy there is very useful, because what you have at the end of the day when you hit the mix assistant or any other type of AI-based software that's going to try and do this process for you is it will then give you a finished product that you're unable to finish yourself due to either a lack of training, a lack of experience, or you just don't have the skill set. But of course, the temptation is you want to get somewhere quickly. This can be useful, I think, for example, if you're an independent artist and you say, I'm a rap artist and I want my music to be competitive when I upload it to all these streaming services, and I want it to sound like Eminem, I want my music to sound like that. It can give you a guidance. So I think it's useful as a tool that you can use for guidance, and then make your own decisions and not just accept it as the final product. I saw a video the other day on YouTube about someone who's a professional mastering engineer, and they were using a product, I think it was Isotope or something. They hit the mix assistant button, and they came out with a result. And then he just closed the entire app down. But the reason why he wanted to do that was he wanted to get some idea about where the mix was and just do a basic comparison just to see whether he was in the ballpark.
Yeah,
and I think that's actually where AI can be useful in a mastering situation. Now, back to your question, that is not mastering. Yeah, AI is not mastering, and I think that basically, but it is a good tool to push you in the right direction to make good decisions about where sonically you want your track, if it's your music or someone else's, to get into the ballpark of where you want the audio to be. Of course, there are no hard and fast rules about this. I mean, you can do anything you want. I mean, for example, if you don't have a tonal balance mixed that isn't matching up to a particular EQ curve, there's no reason why you can't push the high mid way up, and it's way outside what the target reference is. That's an artistic and stylistic choice. It's an artist choice. And some of the great songs that we all love and know sound terrible. I mean, they were sort of mastered back in the 60s and 70s. There was no AI. And we love those songs. And we kind of forgive them because they don't sound great. But we love the melody, we love the tune, we love the lyrics, or for some reason we plug into that particular song. So I think AI, it's not mastering in the sense of the word, but I think it opens up a new window, and it opens up opportunity to people who either aren't mastering engineers but want to have their music uploaded to Spotify and it sounds competitive, or at least sound half decent. It maybe, for example, offers a mastering environment to those of us who don't have the money to pay a mastering engineer, or just want to keep everything in-house. But back to your question, I don't think AI, it's not real mastering as we know it, as somebody used to say on Star Trek. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. That's my opinion. I mean, going on a little bit too long now, I'm waffling a bit, but I mean, I use products like Isotope 10, etc. I would never actually just hit the mix system button and say that's a finished master. I just use it as a reference point. For example, I'll say, oh yeah, well, maybe my low end then is really not actually balanced. Maybe it's over compressed. Then I'll go back and then get my toolkit out and then go to my multiband compressor or my compressor or whatever I'm using, and then I'll try and obviously fix the problem, and then just keep using AI as a reference point to measure where I am in a mix. But I am working towards a particular target. I want my music to be competitive. I want it to sound like a particular genre or style. In that way, you are leaning on AI a bit to get where you want to be, because we can't go out and afford to pay professional mix engineers to come up with the sound for us. That's my basic views.
Yeah, and there's some real good points that you've raised here. And one of the things is we've mentioned Isotope a few times here, and I think this is where they've got it absolutely spot on. Because in all of their marketing material and all of their videos and their promotion around their products, especially the AI focus, the mix assistant, mastering assistant, everything has always been referenced to as being a starting point.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the thing, is when you've got full autonomy over the end result, that's your starting point. This is going to give you a good a basis to start from based on its analysis of the music pool, you then have full control about what the end result sounds like. You may not like it. You may think, no, I'm going to start again. But you may like elements of it. And let's say, for example, if the mastering assistant would come up with something like dynamic EQ, and you might think, well, actually, that dynamic EQ, it's ducking certain areas too much and it's losing that emphasis in that area. You can then go in and fine tune that dynamic EQ. Or let's say that it's that the maximizer settings are too loud, and you think, you know what, no, that's just clamping down on the song too much. You can then go in and back that off. I think when it gets to these some more, when I say these probably more online AI mastering where you don't have so much control, and when I think that's when it kind of gets a bit more murky for me. And it's kind of, there's this question I've written here. So if it's not mastering, what is it? And the technical terminology this is when it starts getting really confusing, because I don't really think there is a definition for it. I think it's just always been it's AI mastering, it's online AI mastering, and it's always that. But what actually is it? And I don't think there is a definition for it. There is two distinct definitions that spring to mind. But one of them we have to kind of discount, and that is cloning, because cloning is effectively taking a direct for replica of the original sound source. And this is the interesting bit, because technically cloning, you can't clone without obviously coming into legal issues. If you start cloning sounds, then that's when it really starts to get into the legal matters. But some of the wording on some of these online platforms is you can upload one reference track, and it words it in a way that we will get you close to or near enough to. So it's very careful in their wording so that they're not going to be, let's say, full foul of any cloning issues. But one of the things that kind of come to me is we've obviously discussed with AI and machine learning. So machine learning is effectively learning based on being fed information and storing that information to then be used for some process moving forward. And there was a term that come up called sound profiling. I think I don't know if this is going to hit it on the head, but it is effectively what it's doing. It's profiling your song, your mix, against a bank of or a pool of music, and it's going to apply a profile of sound to your mix that's going to be in that ballpark of what it's analysed. And it's really difficult to kind of determine what it is if it's not actually mastering. I think it needs almost some kind of separate distinction. But obviously, they're not going to use any term other than mastering, because most people associate mastering as being the final product. And I think the interesting takeaway from me, and it'd be great to get your thoughts, is it's always looking at a finished body of work and not new ways of doing something. And this is the challenge it creates in itself. As a finished body of work, so a song, it's been recorded, it's been produced, it's been mixed, and it's been mastered already. So if you analyze anything on Spotify, Apple Music, it's already gone through those pages, through all those stages. And every single stage has contributed to that end result, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So unless you can analyze the mix and the master, you're never going to know what actually went on for that mastering process.
No,
so it's
true.
it kind of blurs the lines between all of the different your respective disciplines, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of like I think this one, it creates almost another dynamic where this is where I think profiling is probably a better term rather than technically mastering, because you're not just profiling the master because you don't know what the original mix was, do you? So unless you had the original mix and then the master, you can't say for sure what was done in mastering, what was done in mixing, recording, production, etc., etc. So it's really interesting. It's a really interesting solution. We'll let others decide whether it's something that's good or bad, or whether it gets the results that you desire. But it has made me think about what it actually is compared to what it's being advertised as.
Yeah.
Technology, though, isn't it wonderful?
It's wonderful.
And we were speaking about this off air, and I said, so I didn't want this to come across as a biased opinion where it's coming across as saying you shouldn't do this, shouldn't use this, you shouldn't use, You can make your own minds up, and ultimately it comes down to this thing. If you've used it and you've tried it and you're happy with the results, that's all that matters. Quite frankly, isn't it? That is all that matters, whether it's giving you the desired results.
Absolutely. And we're all coming at it from different angles. I mean,
Yeah.
you're an experienced, you're predominantly a mastering engineer. And you'll look at obviously using these AI tools from completely different aspects. Someone who's a home amateur, semi-professional musician probably thinks about mastering in different terms than you do because you're a mastering engineer. So therefore, for example, they will obviously think about AI slightly differently. If it helps them get to a decent sound a lot quicker, it's going to be very attractive. And if they just want to keep it all in-house and they're quite happy to do all the production, the mixing, the recording, they do everything at home. They're wearing all the hats. And the mastering is the last thing in the chain. They're going to think about mastering probably in different terms that a a mastering engineer would think about mastering.
Absolutely.
And my last take on this is that they are basically just tools. And I did like your saw in the shed analogy. It's just a tool to get you somewhere where you think you want to be. And of course, AI is in mixing as well. AI, of course, in mastering. For the 10th time, I'll say it's not mastering as we know it, but I can see how it is a useful tool. I'll give you one practical example on my journey when I tried to do some basic mastering. Is I remember the first time I ran the mix assistant, whatever you want to call it, in Isotope Ozone, and then it put in a dynamic EQ before the maximizer, before the limiter. I thought, well, why has it put a dynamic EQ in there? What's wrong with my mix? Of course, later on, I went to learn, of course, is that, these sort of certain dynamics can be problematic when you're feeding it into a compressor or you're feeding it into a maximizer. It can cause the limiter to behave slightly differently. And if you like, what I understood this, again, you can correct me if I'm completely wrong, because I might be wrong about this. I'm just a simple mix engineer. Is that, you want to control your dynamics before they hit the limiter, because obviously then the limiter will react to obviously the increased dynamic range. Hey, you tell me whether I'm right or wrong, but that's something I learned. If I hadn't hit the mix assistant and questioned why the dynamic EQ was actually put there before the limiter, I probably would never bother to find out why or even query why that could be important. And then it goes back obviously to learning and making decisions as an artist, as a mix engineer. Is it then you think about, well, I need to keep an eye on my dynamics. I can't let these things get out of control, because then in the mastering phase, this might cause a problem for the mastering engineer if you've handed your music over to a mastering engineer. Or of course, it could be a problem for you when you're trying to master your own music.
Yeah.
And the key thing, of course, is how this all translates in the real world, because most people listen to music on earbuds or AirPods or on an iPhone or on really, really low quality speakers. So the one thing that I think where AI and mastering, the AI technology does help you is very much in translation, because if you use products like tonal balance control, which looks at your low end and your tonal balance, it does actually help you get in the ballpark and how it's going to translate into every single different listening environment. And I think that's useful because basically professional mix engineers, sorry, I keep getting confused, professional mastering engineers that work professionally in the studio have a completely, totally treated professional environment. They have tons of experience, and they know just by listening that that's going to translate. Us poor hobby musicians and amateur musicians at home with untreated environments are really stabbing in the dark. So any tools that we can have to help us get our music translated so that on formats and hardware devices that people are going to listen to it, they get the best possible listening experience. Now, if you upload your music to someone who just offers, I think LANDAR, is that the name of the company, and other companies, if you just upload your music and let them master it for you and it comes back down, I don't know how you're going to be 100% certain that that's going to translate well onto every listening environment, because they've just made it louder and they've applied some compression, EQ, whatever they've done with it, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could upload a reference track now as well online. I thought that was, I didn't know that. That's obviously a step in the right direction. But I think basically, as you say, is that most of a good piece of software, if it's written for AI, will give you the full beans with AI, but it will then let you go in and then make your own decisions, as iZotope products do. You can hit the mix assistant, it will listen to your audio, but then you can click that away and you can actually go into a more detailed view, and you can see exactly what decisions were made in terms of dynamic compression, EQ, stereo width enhancement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that for me is, you've hit the nail right on the head there with my takeaway. And if I was to say one key takeaway for the audience at home, is using AI in any capacity is use it in a responsible way, in that you have full autonomy over the outcome. And I think, once again, this isn't going to be a sponsored iZotope
No way.
video. Although iZotope, if you are listening, we're very open to some kind of sponsorship deal. But no, in all seriousness, it's trying to have that autonomy where you have final say on the creative decision. Because I think it's like you say, there's so many good uses of AI, and even the AI the mastering assistant. It's not something that I've personally used. It's not something I have any intentions to use. But it can be a great tool to use for to get the final results. Because it's basically saying, this is what we think based on our pool of music, but you have the full control as to the end result, and it gives you the flexibility to have ultimate control of that outcome, rather than having like an online system where you maybe get 4 options: do you want it bright, dark, spongy, or whatever they call it, and roasted, or whatever the cool technical term is now. That is all you're gonna do. Whereas to use AI, and I think this is really where AI can come into its own, when it gives you full autonomy. It's going to put you into the ballpark, and then it gives you an idea as to what it thinks, but then you have full autonomy to make the creative decisions that you require, and not just what it thinks that you're going to want, and then you don't have any options to do anything other with it. So I think that's really where AI can really benefit any industry. If it can provide a good starting point and get you in the right direction for you to finish anything, then that is going to be a winner, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's like the man said in the movie, with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. But there's always time for rustic. If you go into these AI things, like, go back to my saw analogy, if you're going to use a saw and you're untrained and unskilled, don't be expecting to get some kind of Chippendale furniture piece out of it. The only Chippendale my woodwork looks like is probably Alvin, Simon and Theodore. It's not going to be any, it's not going to be winning any kind of bespoke furniture awards, trust me. So that's the thing, is you've got to kind of be very mindful of that fact. But I think it's a really incredibly interesting topic, and I think it's only going to expand as time moves on, and using AI in different formats and how we can utilize it in much better ways. I think it's going to make things really, really interesting. So
my big takeaway is that it's not a AI in audio technology. It's not just a one-stop solution that will fix all your problems. It's not just hit a button and suddenly I'm going to have my track sounding like, I don't know, it's been produced by Greg Wells or some other professional mastering engineer, or, it's just basically not going to work like that. But if it's used as a tool and as an aid, which helps you in your creative process, or at least getting to a sound with a finished product, then it can be a very, very useful and powerful tool. Providing that you just don't close your eyes, hit the button, and think that's it, job done. I can go make a coffee, and now I'm going to get 1 million downloads because my track sounds so great. As you and I both know, it just doesn't work like that.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely fantastic point to finish the spotlight topic on today. So, Tony, absolute pleasure today, mate. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to do these once again. These are going to be out bi-weekly. They'll be released every other Friday. This first one, I may release this slightly early because there is obviously some time-sensitive information in here regarding some of the SSL promotions and things like that. But look out for these every other Friday. We're really looking forward to creating more of these for you. And if you've got any other suggestions on topics, don't forget, leave them in the comments section down below, because we can certainly have a look at some different topics. We don't want this just to be engineering related. It's coffee beans and music scenes. So think about things, anything music related. We are certainly open to suggestions. So Tony, thanks once again, mate.
Yeah, it's been a blast. It's been great. Really good fun.
Great stuff. And once again, if anyone's, give it one of those thumbs ups and comment, subscribe, and all that goodness. We're not going to keep harping on about that. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
Yep. See you in the next one, guys. Cheers so much.